Hello and welcome to another Random Code stream. This is part 3 of trying to handle numeric literal expressions or literal expression syntax or numbers in C# and trying to find those that don't have separators in them and to offer up a code fix to do it solution wide. Hey Mitch, see you around this morning. Let me get my music going. So I got something going on in the background. This has been more of a rabbit hole than I was expecting. It's something that I thought was going to be hopefully something simple, and it's turned into something that is not as simple because, again, as I've mentioned before with doing anything in Roslyn, you have to consider what other people can do and what's allowed in C#, even though you may not do it often or ever. You know, trying to determine if a number has the underscore in them is easy, but then you have to figure out, well, like I said, if you have a number like var x is equal to 1, 2, 3, that's fine. There's no reason to put a separator in there. But if you had that, you might want to, because, you know, typically people separate by, what would that be, powers of 3 or 4, but, you know, groups of 3 numbers. If you have 0b, you might want to start from here and separate by 4, and that may make it easier to read. You know, it's finding, you know, that you don't have an underscore, but then you have to start going through all these cases. Like, you could have exponents, you could have negative numbers, you could have suffixes that tell you like what the type is, and I might call it type suffix. I'll get back to that in a moment. So this starts getting really complicated, and you know, the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, you know, I think the best thing to do is to move all the parsing logic into a class I'm going to call literal number information. And so what that's going to do is take the string of the tokens text, and I could just give it the literal itself, and then it's going to take that token text and it's going to split it all out so that we have the strings for the negative sign, the prefix, decimal point. Actually, we'll move that here. You'd have the whole part, decimal point if it exists, which it may not, fractional part, floating points, something like we should actually be consistent here and say that's like that. The suffix or type suffix, I might call it. And then is separated, which is weird because we wouldn't be making this type unless it was separated. But the reason, excuse me, the reason I'm putting this in here is because I just want to know if I've already separated it or not. You know, I may not end up using that flag. And then we could have a method on it that says create separated with a spacing size. And so that would just say go through the whole part from the right and separate them out by whatever number you give. And the decimal part, you separate it out by how much you give. And that returns a new literal number information because it's a immutable type. And if it's already separated for whatever reason, it just returns itself. And then toString combines all the parts together. Now, one other thing before I do this is I'm going to back out a thing I did in the last stream. As I mentioned before, if you have a literal defined like this, in fact, let's put that back in here so you can see it. Var x is equal to that. You get an error because you can't have a 2 when you're doing a binary literal. The problem becomes is that like this numerical literal expression is just 211. And then if you look here, there's also a numeric literal expression here. So, and both of them technically are not incorrect. You have to go up the tree to find out if it's incorrect or not. But that's feeling squirrely because the 2 and 1 that was there, like if I go back here and I click on this, that expression itself, and the expression, it's the block that actually would have the error in its parent. It starts becoming really difficult to, I think, heuristically figure out what is correct and what isn't. And then also, it could be incorrect, and we're going to do logic on it and parse things out. Like we could put another 1 here. Nope, not that. We could put another 1 here, and we'd have this as, oh, that's a number. And we want to say offer up a separator. That would make no sense. So what I think I'm going to do is take this off, and the literal expression syntax tree thing is just going to go away completely, because it just, what I am going to do though is I'm going to say this, okay? If context dot filter tree get root contains diagnostics. Is that a there? And we'll pull that off. Put that down there, reformat. Okay. So now what this will say is your tree has to be in a good state. If it's not in a good state, then we're not going to do anything with this. It's just, we can't realistically try to handle these literal expression syntax values. So, all right. Oh, and then that is separated thing here will matter because it will tell us, well, we can do that here actually. And then we could just say, maybe we have something like need separators in them. Yeah. That's a nebulous statement because, again, we have to kind of know, is the literal an integer or is it a floating point number? And for integers, we also have to know if it's hex, or because you can do I believe you can do var d is equal to 0x f, and that's fine. Oh, it's a long D. Oh. Really? So it has an F at the end, and we want to preserve that, but it's technically going to be a long. We need to know what the parser, what Roslyn thinks this numeric literal expression actually is. And I don't know how to do that. Oh, good idea. Thank you. Sometimes I do come up with them. I think this should help. At least separate the logic into a place that makes sense to do it in, and not in the analyzers themselves. And then we can have tests around that and do all the things. But we do also need to figure out what is the actual type of the number. Like here, go back to syntax visualizer. And I hate that sometimes the visualizer loses the focus. I'm going to defer on that for now. There's a value here. It's in the token. I don't know if that's an object. Okay. Well, here comes something that really sucks. Yeah, I know that. That's not what I was hoping for. Um, we can get value. Oh, sorry, value. Get type is assignable from. Here's the problem. Type of I number. Yeah. These interfaces that were added to all the types was done after net standard 3. So I was hoping to do something like that, but I'll have to figure out something. Let's get the logic first for that type I just mentioned. And put that in my ever-growing list of comments. Even though it puts an F at the end, it still considers it to be a long. So, which will matter because, well, the 0x in front would say you're doing it as hex, so we'd want to format each part, and the 0x and 0b would only be for integers anyway, or numbers. So we'd only separate them out by 2, or I think binary should always be 4, but you know, whatever. It's interesting that it didn't error on this. It says that, well, it's an F, and an F means floating, but then you just convert it into a long. You know. Yeah, generic math, I agree. But I can't because .NET Standard 2 doesn't have those interfaces. So I can't use that stuff. I'd love to, but I can't. All right. Let's move on to at least getting that type in that I wanted, that I sketched out here. So let's put it in here. And it'll be internal because nobody needs to see this. Okay. And now we need a bunch of internal string. This get init. Can we use required? I don't think you can. Yeah. No, you can polyfill that. Yeah, is external init. I did that in rocks. Hold on one sec. Let me get that polyfill. I have no idea why Bird and Ernie is done that way. When I'm starting the stream, I'll go to Blue Sky and post a. I'll post a message saying I'm doing a stream, so that's why Blue Sky was up. Rocks. Source analysis polyfills external init. Yes. And then we'll follow that polyfill. No, yeah, except we'll make it a folder. Is external init. There. And now that'll shut up. Right, now it shuts up. That's interesting, though. Oh, the init is for that. This is required member attribute. Really? Huh. Keep going down rabbit holes. Required member attribute. Let's grab that one. Sourced. Do this. And then we'll grab... No, not all that. We just want this. And then we do this. And then we also want to make sure that where do we lift this from? We lifted it from here. I'm guessing it's for the required keyword. Okay, now if we come back here. Now I need compiler feature required attribute. No. This, holy crap. Well, that makes things even more sucky. Maybe we just don't use required. I don't... Oh my god. Why do you people do this? Well, it wouldn't be done at 8 or greater. It would have to be this. Let's see. Let's just get the thing in there. Okay, now let's copy all this. Come on, copy. And then we'll worry about this won't matter. And then we can get rid of the end if, because that won't matter. Yeah, I know. But why are you making that Oh, if it's file scoped. Fine. You good now? You good? Now, does this finally... Good, it shuts up. And extensions AI. Wait, that's not. I grabbed it from. It's going to be the same thing, but it's not. And then is external int. Yeah. Okay. All right, we got our polyfills in. Yippee. Let's get back to writing properties. What you are doing now with polyfills? That was my whole day today. Yeah, there's a source generator I think called polyfills, and it will put in everything you need for .NET Standard as much as it can, so that things that are not runtime specific, like you can't polyfill default interface members. That just, you can't do that because that's a runtime, like a CLR runtime thing, not a library runtime thing. But some of these things can't be polyfill, but a lot of them can. That actually leads to a rant that somebody actually messaged me in Discord talking about writing source generators and how absolutely a pain in the butt it is. And I agree, it is. It's very much painful to write a source generator, in terms of the project support, references, testing, all that stuff. And the documentation, documentation. Yes, there is the cookbooks, which are helpful, useful, maybe. You know, I think that's the difference, is the generator cookbooks are very helpful in terms of knowledge, but are they useful? Do they give you like a pragmatic, step-by-step, here's how you would build a source generator, and here's why you separate all this out? If they did that, oh my God, that would be like amazing. But I don't think they have the people around that anymore to do that. I mean, I found out a couple days ago that they don't have anybody supporting IntelliSense right now, which is fine. I mean, IntelliSense has been around for decades, but something could always come up, and they don't have a person dedicated to that. So, yeah. Anyway. Now, I typically put things in order, but that's fine. We're just going to do this. Let's actually, how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So we'll put prefix here. Whole part be there. Decimal part. Decimal point, I'm sorry, fractional part. The exponent part. Type suffix. And then need separators. That's actually going to be a Boolean. Okay. Now in this, I want to do the order. String, negative, sign. String prefix. String whole part. Decimal, no, decimal, yeah, decimal point, fractional part, parth. Oh, there was you. Oh, yeah, you're right. Never mind. So Mitch was complaining about it. Yeah. This dot negative sign, this dot prefix, this dot whole part, this dot decimal point. You're not getting, come on. Equals negative sign, prefix. There. It's not the prettiest thing I've ever written in the world, but it gets the job done. Let's put these comments here for negative sign, because I think they'll actually be helpful for me. Rather than having them in this document that I have, prefix. It's the prefix. Either gets the negative sign. It was early this morning. I didn't put 2 and 2 together and go, wait a minute, that's Raz's Mitch. Gets the whole part. I know this is rather boring, but this will actually get me to, I think, a better place with all this. Of course, I have to write the parsing logic to do this. Fractional part. I should have just said to Copilot, write me a class that will take a literal expression, blah blah blah. Actually, yeah, I want that too. Exponent is actually in the wrong order. I will want an internal literal number information using a literal expression syntax. We'll get back to that because that's the brunt of the logic. Type suffix. Comments are meant to be for, you know, the gets part there is a little, that's just a habit of mine if I'm going to do that. But these other comments, they're there for future me. And writing good comments is like, I'm not saying my comments here are good, but writing good comments is there. Okay. Oh. I was like, I'm missing something somewhere. There I am. Okay. All right. And then we need a deconstructor. Out string. sign. Actually, we should be able to copy this. And put out in front of all these. And now do the reverse of what I did here. There. So now we could do a wither on it, which is nice. This is going to be the fun part. This is kind of doing... We want the literal text. Now what we want first is... Well, let's get the negative number. If literal text starts... Actually, we could say... this dot negative sign is going to be equal to literal text starts with. So we could probably do that a little cleaner. Can we? Oh, we can't. If it starts with that, then it will be this. Otherwise, it'll be string.empty. Nope, not a comma. There, we did our first parsing thing. Now we want the prefix, and the prefix can be one of those. So this, except we have to consider whether we just found a negative sign or not. I was going to say I could get the next two characters, but it's completely possible that I think you could have done something like this, which is stupidish, but it is legal, and that would have actually screwed us up. So, how do I want to parse this? Because we have to be careful as we're going through the characters that we don't overshoot the string. We could say if literal text index of... Yeah, because you can do a start. The problem is that I don't just want to do an index of, because I want to capture the exact text that's there. We would want to say, is the length greater than 2 if you don't have it? Is it equal to 2? Well, and we're going to only be dealing with valid numbers. Maybe track an offset in some way. That's what I am thinking about doing. But we also want to consider what is legal. I don't think I'm gonna get to this point. I'm not gonna get to this point unless I have a legal literal expression syntax or the whole syntax tree is correct. But that would mean the literal expression syntax is considered correct by C#. So the smallest you saw was a 0. That's the smallest text you could get. And you could put it as -0. But you can't have something like var d is equal to 0x. That will lead to the whole thing being invalid. So, I do, yeah, var offset is equal to 0. Offset is equal to this negative sign length. Oh. Well, that works. Okay. And we can just do var here and initial it that way because now we know what the offset is. So now we need to say is the length plus offset. Well, no. I mean, this is where it's getting a little, I mean, I'm almost wondering if I could write a, could I write a regular expression? Could I write a regular expression? No, I can't. It would almost make this easier though, I think. Get Copilot for free. Write me a regular expression. Part of me is thinking the regular expression is the absolute right way to do this. We can't use the modernized source generator version of regular expressions though, because I think they were added in a specific version of .NET 9 or .NET, and I think it was 7, I believe, but it's not. I can't say generated regex. That won't work. Why can't we just use a regex? And that might just be fine. It's just a matter of writing a regular expression that does what I want it to do. I want to capture like the negative sign. I want to capture the prefix. I want to capture the whole part. And I don't know if that would actually be easier as a regular expression or if it would be easier to do what I'm about to do. Especially considering that I am not an expert in regular expressions. Write me a regular expression that will parse a literal expression's token text. Do the work for me. Wouldn't that be nice? I would bet it wouldn't be completely correct. I don't know if it would know all the things. But it would be nice because then we don't have to do all this. But let's move on. Actually, let's do this first. Let's say I forget if you can do this. I think you can. And then the need separator, we'd have to set later. Can a generator library even use generators? This isn't a generator, though. This is an analyzer. So you could use an, well, yeah. I don't know if you could, because an analyzer's .NET Standard 2, and I don't think you could reference a generator library, a library that has a source generator in an analyzer. So I did this because I want them all to be empty unless I find something. So in this case, I found that we have a negative sign. And then we set the offset to that first thing. And now we want to do is say, well, if the literal text is this, now what we want to tease out is the start. We want to get the var prefix is literal text substring. The start index would be offset, and the length is going to be 2. Because we've guaranteed now that we're going to be enough to get the prefix. We don't know if it's a valid prefix, though. That's the thing. What we want to do now is say, if prefix equals 0x or prefix, and we're doing this literally because we can't just say, is it with insensitive case? We need to have it exactly the way the user typed it. And I just realized something. No. What did I just... What? What nonsense command did I just... Don't you hate it when you hit some random keystroke thing and you're like, what did I just show? You see the little tab things here? That I don't like that. How the hell do I get a maybe a dumb idea, but what if you insert a special character after each of the prefixes and suffixes and string split? Maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure if that, I'm too concerned about this dumb white space thing. I just show white space in editor. Thank God. I don't know what I did to turn that on, but geez, that was that was annoying. We want to say here this prefix is equal to, if it's any one of these, then what we're going to do is say prefix. Otherwise string.empty. That kind of feels wrong. Let's just do this. Okay, so now what we've done is we've said we've got the minus sign, we know the offset, we got a prefix, and now we can do offset plus equals 2. Because we've added a prefix onto the front of it. Never mind, you still would need to know what positions this... Yeah, exactly. So, okay, we got 2 things now of the 6 things. Oh, my Lord. Actually, I just realized something. Yeah, I just realized, you know why this is long? Is because I put the 0x in front. That means this is hexadecimal formatting. And if it's hexadecimal formatting, the F is actually valid. Same thing if you put a D there. That's not a type suffix. And that's actually important to keep in mind when I'm parsing out if the number part, because I can't just look at the end and go, oh, is it a D or an F? No, because, you know, it may actually be like this too, E2. If I did this here and I said E2, well, that's going to be a long again. Yeah, because this is saying, oh, that's whatever comes after it is hexadecimal. That's actually maybe a good point. And whatever comes after a B is a binary. Like you can't have here an L. Well, it's going to say that. And it is a long. But if we took... That's okay. If you put a 0x or a 0b in front of a number, literal, what that means is everything after that like an X can have an F here and say it's a long. Okay. The only thing that you have to look at is the last character and say, is that an L or a UL? That's the only thing it could be. Because I don't think there's a type suffix. I've got the is suffixed by a U or U. Yeah, so then you can just say did you end with a U, an L, or a UL? And then we have to somehow figure out, well, what's at the end to get that. Yeah, rabbit hole keeps getting deeper. There is a way out of it. I am convinced there's a way to get out of this rabbit hole. It's just, we actually hit a case here. If you put a 0x or 0b in front of it, what you can now do is say, you're not going to have a decimal point. I'm almost positive. You can't say like that. That ends up being a mistake, and that would cause an error. Okay. So what we can do is just say, look at, now we can say here, we know at this point, this is an integer. So the only thing we need to grab is the decimal part. I don't know if that's actually the correct, if it's like mantissa exponent, whole part, fractional part is the whole part, and a type suffix if it exists. If we don't have this, well, now we have more churn to do. Now we'd have to look and see. Those rules go off now, And so now you have to look and see, it would only be decimal numbers, but now you have to see, do you have an exponent? Do you have a decimal point? And do you end with a type suffix? So yeah, it starts. Maybe this is why they, I don't know. I'm kind of curious how they wrote their analyzer refactoring thing, because they had to do something similar to this to be correct. But again, I'm doing this as a exercise for the interested reader. It's an intellectual exercise. I want to see if I can do it, and do it correctly. So what I might do is, as a test, is write something that parses the entirety of the Roslyn code base, looks for all literal expression syntaxes, and just throws it into here and says, does it error? And if it doesn't error, does the toString give the same value as the syntax token text? That would be an interesting, like, integration test to run. But that's to see if I really, really, really want to exercise this. That would probably find a lot of bugs, I'm guessing. Things that I did not consider. In any event, moving on. Okay, so we know at this point that we have an integer, so the only thing we need to grab is the whole part, and type suffix exists. So we could say if we know that at this point we at least had a prefix. If we have a prefix, that means we have got to have something. We've got to have something after it, right? We could have 0L or minus 0L. Or you could just have 0. The case here of it being less than or equal to 2 plus offset is you just have the decimal part, I'm sorry, the whole part, and potentially a suffix, because you could have 0f, I think, and that would be fine. Jeez, this just keeps going. I mean, I am convinced this is the right way to go. It's just the logic of parsing this out is it's harder than you think. You know, you can write the code, at least I find it harder than I think. You can write the code to just put in a numeric literal, and you never think about it, but to actually parse it out so that you know what all the parts are based on some arbitrary literal expression syntax is like, my God, that's... It is more work than I expected. But if we have a 0, if we put this 0x or 0b in front, there's got to be something after it, right? And we don't have to worry about exponents or fractional parts or a decimal point. There would be none of that. So what we can put here now is... we now want to, I think, oh, we can't slice. Substring will give us a string. I want... yeah, there's the slice. Okay, so we could do a span. And we can say, it wouldn't be empty. We know that. Did you know that URI has a hex digit? If the last character is not a hex digit, that means it's a type suffix, or at least it's part of a type suffix. Literal text or mirror span. How do you do that? I forget. Let me actually type it out because then it will give me the range. If hex digit. Can you do that for me? Oh, it should do it for me. I forget the syntax to say, give me the last character no matter what the length is. I thought it was range 0, like 0. I thought that's what it was. It's not. The range and index stuff is... Oh. I had a word that started with F and is 4 characters long that just went through my head to describe what I think about .NET Standard 2.0, but I try to keep my coding streams clean. My gaming streams are a whole different matter, but my coding streams I'm trying to keep PG. And you can't have a PG stream. You can have a PG-13 stream, and then you only get one of those words. So, oh, poop. There, I feel better now. Yeah, you can. It don't exist. Shakes fists at .NET Standard 2.0. Anyway, if the last character is not a hex, which is fine if it's binary because it would only be 0 or 1 anyway. So we're just trying to find out if it's not a hex digit. That would mean it's a U or an L in this case. But we also have to now look and say, we need to look at the second to last character as well. And okay, we can say var type suffix is equal to that last character. If that last character is not a hex digit, we do have to look at the second var second type suffix. Don't you love my variable names here? They're great, aren't they? Whoops, not minus. Except we want to do 2. We want to go back 2. Now what we want to say is we grabbed it. Now we're going to say this dot type suffix is equal to if second type suffix. What's the problem here? Right. If it is, then what we have is Yeah, none of that's going to work. I didn't think it would in int is string. Type suffix is a char. Second type suffix is a char. Fine. This feels dirty. But whatever works. Blech. Blech. God. There. And now what we can do is say this dot whole part is equal to the literal text starting at the substring of the offset and the length is the length of the literal text minus the offset minus this type suffix length. So you're moving over the offset and you're grabbing the text there, but you're also considering the type suffix is there. If there's one or two, you're minusing off, and that rest of part of it is the whole part. Let's write some tests because I need to go grocery shopping. So let's at least start to write some tests around this stuff to see if we're kind of going in the right direction. I would love to be able to do this as a test case, and as a parameterized test case, but I think what I'm going to need is I can't do it as attributes. So I'm going to have to look this up. I know you can do it in NUnit, but you need like an iterator to do it. God, light mode. Test case source attribute. That's what I'm looking for. I've never liked what they do here. I wish they could add a to make this more type safe. It's always felt ugly because they use yeah, so you can say that, but it's always an object array. I'm like, God, could they just source type, and then it's an enumerable, and you can use get enumerator. But we can do this. We can do this. Come on. I can tab over if I could do it. Not fact. Would you stop it, Visual Studio? God, I hate that it has that assumption. Oh my God. Test case source. Right? Test case source. And we need to put a name of something in there. Yeah. This will be private static. Can you yield out of this? Yeah, you can. Excuse me. So we could say private static IEnumerable of so you can give it a string here. What I could try is I want to say for this text does it give me like, and then say here's the literal number information, and does the toString equal? So I want it as a string and a literal number information. Get test information. Okay. And so what we want to do here is, first of all, let's do a yield return, where we pass something simple, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then we want a new literal number. Actually, let's just do new here. Oh, come on. You can't. There. Yeah. So this will be that. Oh, come on. You can't. That sucks. Negative sign prefix will be that. Whole part will be 1, 2, 3, 4. Decimal point will be that. Fractional part will be that. Exponent will be that. Type suffix will be that. And need separator will be true. We haven't gotten there yet. So let's do a false and just do a 1, 2, 3. Because we know that won't. And we have to put that line. What are you complaining about here? Requirements. Fine. And I know what this is going to do. Sets required members. You don't know what that is. Watch as a developer goes insane. Sets required members attribute. I thought playing Hollow Knight would make me insane. This one trick. Sets required members attribute. And then let's say, let's go namespaces. Is this system private core lib? No, it's not. So we can take that off. And we can do that. Haha. Okay. We want to put that up here. Except we want that as the source. Polyfill is needed because attribute is required. Yes. Close that, close that. Now, let's comment that out. Go back to my test. Where's my test? Test. It is. Maybe it's not picked up yet. That. We want a public static. No, what is that? Void. Parse literal text. And what we want is something like, let's do string text information. Let's actually name these. I know you're not really supposed to do that, but that helps with, well, no, you should be able to do this, I think. And then you can do that and say name of literal tests, get test information. And then there, now you shut up. What's the problem here? Probably. Oh. Oh. Value. Well, what's the... Is actually so reassuring to see you hit the same. Yeah. No, you're not. You're not alone on that. Absolutely not alone. But I am setting... Maybe I have to put it on both constructors. Oh, I put it on the wrong one. But this also sets required members. Well, come on. There. Jeez, oh Pete. If we put a minus sign in front of this, what we should see is a negative sign. Now, one thing we have to do before we test this is we need to override toString. Override toString. Okay, and that is going to be big mess. Can I type? Apparently not. This dot negative sign. This dot prefix. This dot whole part. This dot decimal point. This dot fractional part. This dot exponent. And this dot type suffix. There. Okay, so now we can test it. Because what we're basically saying is, here's the text, here's an information object. Does the toString equal the text? And so that's what we want to do. We want to say, assert that information toString. Value.information toString is equal to value.text. And then let's do that. I think I also did something with word wrap accidentally. Control EW. Yeah, I must have, in whatever I did before, bring that up. Okay, so now we need to make sure we're passing in the right thing here, though. Okay. What we really should do is get the literal from a parse. Because this really isn't testing anything, is it? We want to say private static literal expression syntax get literal syntax string code. So what we want to do is say syntax factory parse syntax tree source text. That's just a string. Yes, code. Descendant. Oh, we need the root, don't we? Yeah. Descendant nodes. True. Of type literal expression single. There. That actually makes more sense. I mean, that is a valid test. But that's not actually what we want to do. What we want to do is say static string get code string literal text. Okay. And what we want that to return is, I think this should work. If I say our value is equal to literal text. That should parse. So what we want to pass in here now is not that. But we want to parse in literal number information test. Get literal syntax of get code of 1, 2, 3. Oh, and then we want to say here, new, that. There. And now we can do the same thing here. Put that. It would be nice if I don't repeat the number. What I could do is just make a list of strings, iterate through the strings, and then pass them in there. I might do. I'm just trying to see if I can get to a point where I feel like I've got this, like the structure in place to move on from. What does this do? 2 failed. Yippee! What failed? I got to the is equals. Huh. Did I... Let's just do one of them for now. Nope, that's not a test. It did parse. Right? So we get all that. Our text is 1, 2, 3. Does it start with a negative sign? No, it does not. Is the length... What's the prefix? It's not the... Oh, we never did the other... Well, fine. 0x. 0x. Now what do? Now you pass. Started getting literal information. Literal number information in. And for literal text parsing. More work to come. All right. It feels like that was an hour and a half-ish of a lot of work to get what felt like not very far, but I still think this is the right way to go. I do think that this is definitely the right way to go. So in the next episode, which I probably will do on tomorrow morning, I will continue to expand on this and fill in all the holes here and all the gaps and everything else that I've done, and have to reshuffle and move things around. But I do think this gets us to the right spot, and there will be more testing on it. Once I get this literal number information in place, it's going to make the analyzer much simpler, because what we're going to be able to do is say, get the text. If it doesn't contain this, create an information, tell me, does it need a separator? Because we're going to have to set that up here. And if it if it does, then we get rid of all this code and we'll just say doesn't need it, and we report the diagnostic. We can also report the diagnostic, I think, and pass in that object. I think that reference will go over to the other side. I'm not sure, to the code fix. I think it will. Because then we can just pull that out and use this other method that I've hypothesized about, create separated. And then have the logic in there to take those two parts, just those two parts if they exist, put the separation in at the right spots, and then do a deconstruction wither to give you a new literal number information. And you can use that's toString to say, here's your new text. So that's why I think building this up is the right thing to do. But we'll do that. We'll do more work of that in the next episode. I want to thank everybody who showed up. I do appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel just yet, please do so. Would greatly appreciate that. Anybody who has subscribed, I thank you also for doing that. It really means a lot to me. I'm going to continue to build the channel that way. And with that, I am done with this stream. Thank you all for watching. Take care, and I hope to see you in the future.